right, because his bone's there.
All clear, push hard. One inside, door, clear low.
Alright, can you hear me now? I haven't streamed in a while, so I'm not surprised. Existing. There we go. Let me see if that works. Sick. Alright. Are you hearing me double, or what's up? Is it just working just fine now?
Exit's clear, go, go, go.
So, sweet. So, what I'm going to do here is, first thing I'm going to run some laps on this because I haven't run any laps on this set, but I'm just going to publicly work on this Dover set. Just going to walk through my methodologies, my thought process, what I see in the car, just some fundamentals, look at my workbook that I'm building and kind of see what we need to see for telemetry, what I'm looking for in telemetry, that kind of thing, and see if we can make this car a little bit better. Off the rip, it is on the ground big time, can tell you that. It's got a bit of an awkward feel.
P2 there.
It was built using the VRS telemetry, and I've tried that, but it to me it's just not exactly clear. It might be just a matter of perspective or amount of time spent working with it. Just kind of not my thing. It can work for some people. I'm not gonna diss on it. It's a pretty cool technology. I was working on building something similar, but it's just too time consuming. I just personally like working with Motec a little better, but just getting a quick couple laps there just to see what the car felt like, and then grab some telemetry to look at. So if you give me just a moment, we'll get
Keep your eye on your tap.
Motec pulled up. Alright. And we'll pull it up in here as well. Make sure you can still hear me. Alright. So, as long as you guys can see my Motec and still hear me, so I pull the stream back up. Nope, not what I wanted. So what I'll be looking at here, so it's actually on. There we go. That's the right window. So what I'm going to do, once it loads, because I have a lot of telemetry logged, is take the run I just did, 513, 3 laps, open that up. So this is a lot of information up front. Alright, so what this is telling me is we are in the ground. So this is my 0 line. So I'm just watching right here through turns 1 and 2, and then 3 and 4. This just isn't displayed well, which I may fix. You can see it's getting into the track pretty good. And so what I was explaining earlier is how springs and shock springs work in any car, really. So what you're going to have is travel, weight transfer, that kind of thing. So when you get on the throttle, the weight is going to shift to the rear of the car, and that's where you're going to be seeing, like on corner exit, you see it come up, and then it kind of settles down as the car kind of levels out. And then as we're getting to the end of the straightaway, the car, I mean, it can get tail happy if you throw the car into the corner, if you're doing it the correct way, but as it comes down into the corner, you see that the front end comes down as the weight transfers to the front of the car. It could be, let me see here. Alright, I'm showing it pretty clear. I just pulled it up on YouTube. Well, it's kind of going back and forth. It may be my internet, and it may be better to look at in a replay. But if you hit the little settings button at the bottom and make sure your quality is set to the 1080p instead of auto, it may buffer, but it may be best to look at again the recording afterwards, just at high quality. But what we're looking at here is suspension travel. So as it comes under load here, it's coming too far down and we're hitting the ground. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is add some packer on at least the left side to get this side off the ground. If I look over here on the right side, it looks better. I'm going to change this graph in the future because it is a little difficult to tell what you're looking at here, but this, I'll make this line blue or something. This 0 is the ground. The right side, typically when it hits at the start of a run, it will only hit for like a couple laps and then it will lift. So I like to get this as low as I can. This side will only go down further, so you don't want to get the left side any lower than it already is. We actually want to get it up. So looking at the overall ride heights here, the blue arrow here is the lowest point, the red arrow is the highest point, and the diamond here is the average ride height all the way around the corner. So 1 second. All right, apologies. So the average is the diamond here, the orange diamond. So what I like to look at here is trying to keep these at most tracks underneath 1, but then what you come into at some tracks, like Dover, you can't. The amount of travel up and down, as you see the suspension is so bumpy, makes this number generally higher. So if you're below 1 or below 9, 8, 7, whatever, it usually means you're in the ground. If you were to get like 0.6 average ride heights, typically those would be good at a really smooth track, but at Dover, it means your splitter is just dug into the ground, essentially. So this 1.2 is about what we'd expect because this is, for the most part, down on the ground. It's a little bit high, just barely. I wouldn't even change it, honestly. This left front needs to change. So I look down here, you can see the Okay, can't see the mouse either. Beautiful.
The car behind you just did a 23.2.
Let me try to get it to show the cursor. I don't know why it's not. Man, this is making me mad. I have not done this in a minute. The videos I do are going to be a little higher quality. I want to take some time and I'm gonna get with my guys and we're gonna try to build some legitimate visual references on how some things work. I can't figure out why it's hiding my mouse though. Thank you, OBS. Appreciate it. Alright, one moment. We'll see if we can fix the cursor not showing. Alright, 1 second here. We'll go properties, capture cursor selected, so I don't know why it's not showing up. There we go. I had to select the window. There we go. Beautiful. Uh, Alright, so this was the lowest point. This blue arrow is what I was talking about. The red is the highest point, and this diamond here, this orange, is the average ride height throughout the entire lap that is selected. So up here I could click, and I could drag this to show both, and then it would show me the average of both laps, but we're just looking at the second one, which was my best. So this negative 0.146 is a little bit low. That's in the ground is what that's saying, and if you hover over that, it'll show you where it's low. It's entry to 2. This the lowest point is just about 0.1 off the ground. I'm okay with that. We could drop it. This red and blue here, so what this is the front right heights. This is measured at the skirt of the car at the front, basically by the rear tire. I might be able to show a visual representation of that later in the sim. But this is, I think, what VRS is actually showing you, and that's why I don't like it. These two channels are done with maths, but they are pretty, I think they're pretty accurate. They have not steered me wrong. If this is -0, I'm in the ground and it reflects in the sim. So it's been pretty good to me. I can show you, and I will in the future when I do these videos, go through the maths of how that's calculated, but it's using an actual sensor for the center front splitter ride height, but these are for the splitter. This is for the skirt by the front tire at the end closest to the driver, and then these are the rear. So what I look for when I look for rollover is going to be, since the left side is red, is the right side higher than the left side, or is the left side higher than the right? This looks like you're pretty much avoiding rollover all the way around because the right side's higher, so that's good. Same thing over here, the right side gonna remain higher, so we're good with that. That's what we want. So you can actually get these about even for the most part. Like it's not always gonna be even, but like you can see, like right here, it's pretty close. So you're not far off on that front. So first thing we're gonna do though is get this left front off the ground. So let's go ahead and switch this back to the sim. And okay, so you know what I mean on the skirt. Cool. So what we're going to do is come in here. First things first, I'm going to talk about basically split from left to right. On everything that you do, split. Let me turn off the little cat. I think it's that one. Yep. So from left to right, split. Anything you do, the bigger the split from left to right is generally looser. So if you have 15 psi of split in your tire pressures like you do here, then I mean that's 15. But say I were to take this to 28 or 25, that is going to make the car looser because it's going to create more split. Typically, I wouldn't run these any higher than 28. You can go up to 30. You can go up to 32. 32 is really the limit. I've seen the VRS setup do 32. I just don't recommend any higher than that, like pretty much ever. Um, I could tell you this week, I start from the baseline and like 25 or lower is okay. Like you can still generate good pace if that's what you're worried about. It just depends on what you're looking for. Like the lower you can get your tire pressures, typically the better you are for the long run, but not always. It just depends. You don't want to go too low because you're giving up speed up front. But obviously you don't want to go too high because you could give up speed in the long run. So it's just finding the balance, if that makes sense. So going through the setup here, 28 ballast, your weight is all the way in the rear of the car. That is not the worst thing in the world. That's okay. You can move your weight a little forward. I wouldn't put like all your weight forward because that will likely kill the right front, but it's a balancing act, and if you're struggling to find the balance, then just don't mess with it and put it in the rear like you did. That nose weight percentage is directly reflected with this ballast. So I don't like running a 14-to-1 at the Dover or short tracks. You want to just go maybe a little bit lower. In my opinion, I'll just set that at 10. So these are just personal preferences. I'm just adding to the set. Your tape is right about where you can get. I don't think you can get any higher than that. So now that I've added my personal preferences, let's kind of dive in here. So one thing I can do to fix the hitting the ground thing, and maybe even just kind of make the ride heights more consistent, is I'm gonna want to take these shock springs a little bit higher. I know I talked about this earlier. Generally, 400 and 7,000 is not a bad combination in most places. I'm even running a little bit stiffer springs here, but the shock springs are the big thing really in this car that keep you off the ground. And the softer you are, sometimes the worse off you are. I have seen them work well otherwise, and you know what? Just for the sake of minimal adjustments and not making this, my own set, I will just do a packer adjustment. But I would highly recommend moving these to sevens, and then probably leveling out this front a little more. Instead of having 4.5 and 5.0 for your ride heights, you can do 4.5, 4.5. That's generally, from what I've seen, the recommended way or the preferred way. So we'll take this up to 1.813, and that should, we'll go up one more just in case. We'll get it off the ground. That's okay. That's kind of, you could get a little bit higher. It's being pretty conservative on your camber. So more camber on the right front is more speed, but also you don't want to go too high because, again, you give up too much speed long run. So it can help you initially with turn in. It can give you a little bit more rotation, but also as you're likely heat up the tire a lot more, a lot faster, it will go through the right front pretty quick and you'll lose long run pace. When I was talking about split earlier, this left rear to right rear spring split, this is a big thing. So a lot of the times I'll run probably a 800 or more pound spring on the right, and then I just use the right to set my ride height basically, and I just work around the right spring. I rarely change it once I set it initially. I use the left rear spring for ride height adjustment, and that is something I saw in a Christian Schallner video. It's a little dated, but it's pretty accurate. It's pretty good. It's a process I like using. So the left rear spring does a lot for adjustment. The one thing to note about the left rear spring though, so like say I go to a 425, it dropped it a little bit. It's not much. It's not as much as like going from like a 700 to a 725. So that was barely a change. So the 7539. If I go to 700, 7509, it barely dropped. But if you go from 425 to 400, it just went up like a whole inch and a half. So at underneath 425, you're using a different size spring, so it's not as tall or it's shorter, one of the two, and it will make a dramatic difference. What I've noticed is underneath that 400 mark, spring adjustments on the left rear make a much bigger adjustment on handling. So typically, unless I'm looking for a big swing, I'll keep the left rear above 425 and then go up or down from there. Just above 425 though. But you had that at about 450, I think. So we'll take that down. I'm gonna put my toes need to come back up because we try to run these as high as possible. That's too high, so let's take them right there. So it should be 5. All right. So now that we have the front end should be out of the ground, let's go and do a lap.
Your pit exit is clear.
So is there anything that I'm saying that is just like not making any sense or sounds wrong? And on a short run, like a high lap, you should be able. I mean, in my set, if I wanted to, I could keep some throttle in it going to the corner. You can keep your speed up. You see, it's not really as upset coming to the corner now because it's off the ground a lot more, so it's not just smacking the track consistently. And then usually my second lap be a little bit faster here.
Okay, you're running the best lap time. You are now 0.1. You're quicker than second place. Okay, that lap was a 23.1.
I don't know what the weather is in here. So it's sliding a little bit out of 4, but that might just be driver line for me. I might be getting too aggressive on it. I'm gonna put, this is my last lap here. And there's a 9. So it's got some good pace.
You're currently 0.3 quicker than second place.
I think 9s and 8s are, if you can run one, that's good, but we're looking for long run pace too. Long run pace is far more important than short run. What I like to typically do though is get the car as fast as I can on the short run and then adjust for a long run because I want to make sure I can get everything out of the car. So we'll come back into the garage here now that I've done that, and I'll look at the tire wear. And as I was mentioning earlier, the one thing I do to determine performance in long run is look at the tire wear. And if you only ran 3 laps and you're already to the right rear, I can tell you this thing is going to be loose. So if you think about 3 laps and you're already 1% down, and that indicates loose, in 15 to 20 laps, how far down is it going to be? You're likely not going to have any drive off. So what we're going to go ahead and do, well, let's take a look at ride heights really quick. Let's make sure that we're where we want to be before we get too far ahead of ourselves here. So let me switch over here one more time. Alright, so I'm going to open up that run. And it's slow because my folder is just massive. So it's okay to touch a little bit. Obviously it didn't hinder my speed, and that might have been because I got on the throttle pretty good or not. You know, I was trying to get it pretty hard there, but that was just travel down. The bad thing though is that it is hitting on lap 3, and if typically the right side will raise, but the left side will lower, and a lot of that's to do with fuel burn. I don't know why the right front raises, because logically it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But if the right rear, which is where I believe most of the fuel is stored, that portion of the car, as it comes up as the fuel burns out, and in theory, even if it's in the rear of the car, both ends should come up and both the front should come down. But as the right rear comes up, the left rear will drop. Or I'm sorry, not left rear, the left front will drop, and it will get further down into the ground. So as this will basically become dramatically worse. We will be hitting on like lap 20 pretty hard and that will cause a lack of rotation. Usually that'll tighten the car up really bad. So we're going to add another packer in here just to try to balance that out, because that's a little bit too much. And that's going to make the car a little bit looser up front, but that's okay. All right. So I'm going to add that. The other thing is when you get up to a certain height on your packers, so like 1.938 and 2.063, you're dangerously close to engaging the shock spring all the way around the track. So typically what we do for the Xfinity car anyway, the Cup cars are vastly different, but the Xfinity cars, to generate speed is you want travel, because the ride height limit of 4.5, as you can see on the screen, only on the left side, that's still a lot of room to go down to the ground for the splitter. Like, it has to travel. So we run those 400-pound springs to allow it to drop as much as possible in the corner, and we would use the shock spring to catch it and stop it from hitting. Well, we only run a 4,000-pound shock spring, and then a 1.938 packer, and then you, like say you add a couple more clicks of packer for some reason, you engage the shock spring all the way around the track. So essentially what you're doing is, instead of sitting on a 400-pound spring, you're sitting on a 4,000-pound shock spring, so the car can't travel as much. It's not going to behave quite like you want. And then you also see ride height adjustments that are made with the shock spring instead of the spring perch offset, because it's just stuck on a spring. The spring perch offset is useless at that point. So be careful getting too high. The 2.0, I see that commonly, or up in that range at times. But you get up to like 2.2, you're engaged the whole time. And the way to check that is, I have a video about it. The esports racing group has a calculator on their website. You put that into Motec and it'll show you like when your shock spring's engaging, but I don't ever use that. I just know that about 2.1 is way too high for a packer, unless you're trying to purposely engage the shock spring all the time. And for this car, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So we've added some packer again. That should hopefully pull it off the ground. We'll go ahead and make another run and see what it does. The shock spring itself is okay. The only thing is the packer. So the way that I would typically set these up is a little bit different. Or just, even when I'm just spinning out a baseline. So for me, when I build a set every week, I've been building from the baseline, starting from scratch, like basically zero every single week. And I know there's a couple things that I'm going to throw into it usually. I'll either throw some random front springs in it, or I'll throw 400, 400, 7,000, 7,000. That happened to be the closest combination this week to something that I liked, and that's all right. And then I just kind of have different ideas of things that I've found worked in the past as far as balance and handling. So it's not the end of the world to run 400, 4,000. It's just the way the ride heights are set up and how high those packers are can be concerning. Just make sure you don't get too high is the one big thing. And then you want to make sure your aero platform is as good as you can make it. So if you try different combinations, try different packages, and see what works best for you. Because I found while I was testing here a little bit, maybe a little stiffer spring was a little more beneficial, and a lot of the times it is, because I remember the last time I was here, I couldn't get the car out of the track. And so like it would be really good for about 50 laps, and then the last 10 to 15 of the run, it would get in the track, and I would go from running second to getting lapped and running eighth out of nowhere. That's some good pace still in it, a little free still. And I couldn't stop it. And in the very last race of the week, I did something really random with the springs and threw it in and went and dominated a race. I think it was still on the ground. It was insane. The aero platform is everything in this car. The Cup cars really too. I think they're more aero dependent than this is, but there's a lot of speed that can be found in handling when the nose is sealed. When the nose is in the air, when the nose is in the track, it's going to make the car just not want to drive right. And while these laps are a little bit slower, I'm also not driving as hard. I just want this to be kind of about like a race pace. These are some pretty solid laps, so I'm not complaining.
Okay, you just did a 23.1.
I feel like it didn't want to turn a little bit there in the center, but it's not the worst thing. 268. All right.
Okay,
So
that
let's
lap was
go.
23.3.
Look at the tire wear. Look at the ride heights, and do it all over again. And from this point, the ride height should be good, so we can just start kind of analyzing the handling of the car. It's going to be the big thing. 98, 97 still a little free. I think it might tighten up based on what I was feeling there, but you're going to find pace, among other things, just by trying different things, though, was the point I was getting at. 32, I know that's pretty common. VRS really started that. I've been trying to do 16 lately and actually using these because they are useful. It's just a matter of understanding how to use them. In the Discord that I invited you to, and I'm going to put in the description of this or a comment, I posted posted. Let me look at the channel name. The posted resources. There is a bunch of tuning guides that should point you in the right direction as far as adjusting shocks and that kind of thing, and what to adjust for certain conditions like tight on entry or loose on exit or so on and so forth. What I'm looking at, real quick, one more time on ride heights, just to make sure that we're golden, which we should be, because if it's in the ground now, then we have an issue. So let me load this file. It is 11 o'clock. Fantastic. Alright, so it shows we slammed the ground on lap 1. That's okay. That's lap 1. Still in the ground. So the left front is likely, as long as this is showing the right run, and it is. So what I think is going on, because we added Packer and it's still in the ground, it might be actually riding the shock spring all the way around, and the shock spring just isn't stiff enough. That is possible. So what we are going to have to move to at least somewhat stiffer shock springs. I'll probably just take them to 55 on both sides, just to start. Alright. So that tells us at least which direction we needed to move in as far as that goes. And then that was probably a big problem, was getting this thing out of the track. That is huge, especially long run. Past that, and if this works and it gets it out of the track, it's going to be looser. And it's already pretty loose as far as the tire wear is concerned. So, and I like to keep this at 0 if possible, but it's just a matter of, like, sometimes you don't really think about it. And it'll be affected by changes, but if it gets high, I just kind of knock it down. I'm going to take basically half an inch out of this track bar and half an inch out of this track bar. And the reason I'm taking out of both is a term called roll center. So the car is going to be affected in a different manner if you just raise one track bar or the other. Same thing with the springs in the rear. So if you were to raise or lower one, it's going to affect it in a different manner than, say, if you're trying to change your roll center. Or keep your roll center the same, but just get a different effect raising at the same time. And it is, I think, more applicable to track bars, because raising both rear springs isn't going to get quite the same effect, or really the same effect at all. But basically, it's just a good common practice. Like, if you're pretty close on the set, just move in increments of the same value on both sides as far as track bars are concerned. So I'm just going to snug it up by dropping it half an inch and half an inch. We'll keep that 10 and 12. Yes, Commodore's garage is phenomenal. It is like, I'm telling you, somebody called it the Bible for oval racing on my team in a Facebook chat, and they're not wrong. It's a lot of information to go through at times, so I understand, like, the frustration with it. Like, if you're trying to go through it and just be like, shoot. But there's a lot of stuff, like, I mean, I was still asking questions about, and I'm thinking, like, I just don't have a good understanding of it. And so I'll watch videos all day or listen to them on YouTube or something in a Bluetooth headphone, and then you can always go back to the Commodore's garage, and all that information was there. Just took a second to sit down and understand it. This thing already feels better. I feel like I have drive off already, so that's pretty good. I'm not afraid to go into the corner now a little bit.
22.9.
Not gonna lie to you though, that 3 car is my teammate. Don't think he's on my setup, but he is my
That
teammate,
puts
so
you 0.2
I
off the
gotta
pace.
knock him off the board with this. Hold on. Might be a little too tight in the center, but as far as long run goes, that's kind of what I want at this track. So what I like to do, and typically what's good here, ooh, there's some rotation there, is coming up in the
You are
center,
now 1.1
and
off the pace.
basically take it easy on entry, come up in the center, get a good drive off the corner. Don't rush the corner, don't kill the right front, trying to come in hard on entry, because that won't be any good. It never is. It'll kill the right front, and by the time you get 30 laps in, you just having to drive off. And I was killing people like that. You can make some pace even in a crap set by fixing the drive off there. And I'm seeing that it's still in the ground a little bit. All right, making sure. So it's better though because it's mostly off. It's just that one little divot where it's dropping. So we're gonna try and see if we can slow that weight transfer a little bit. So I don't want it to fall quite as hard coming into 3 and 4. So what we're going to try to do is, since stiffening the shock spring really didn't help that, we're going to go ahead and stiffen the spring just a little bit, about like 50 pounds. Put that back at 0. And then let's go ahead and try her again. This is one track that you really don't want to be nailing the ground, especially over a run though. I feel like I'm rambling at times here, but it's been a day. Apologies. As far as raising one spring higher than the other, so from what I've read in some of the like setup matrices, depending on which one's right, you know, and depending on which one you read, they kind of say some condescending stuff sometimes. From what I can tell, having the left front higher than the right front is better for turn in.
That puts you 0.1 off the pace.
So I can feel the tires kind of sliding out. I'm sorry if this is stuttering at the moment. It's not in full screen mode like it should be.
You are now 0.1 off the leader's pace. That lap was a
Damn, he's in the 8s. This thing feels pretty good right now though. Better than it did, I think. It was inconsistent though because
you alright? That was a big one there.
It still feels like it's kind of smacking the ground a little bit.
That lap was 23.1.
So let's take one more look at ride heights because who knows, it might be wrong. So let's go into, I just need to do a full screen capture at this point. Let's go to Motec. Let's come over here. Okay, so it's not quite as much in the track, but it's still there. But definitely a lot better. It's not. I don't think it's digging in quite as much, and you see it barely is there. So it's about the right direction. The left front, as the tire pressure's kind of built up, it came off the ground. You can kind of see that, so that's good. But as the fuel burns off, it will come back down. So good direction, not quite there yet though. If you want to see how I build a set from scratch though, we can work on that as well. Or I can keep working on this, but I think it's going to be going a bit of a wild direction here. Because probably what I would do next after looking at that left front, or I'm sorry, you know what? I know why it's in the ground. Because if you look at Motec, the first thing that we're looking at is the left front hitting the ground, and I just raised the right front spring. So that is it. So let me go ahead and do the polar opposite of that on, I don't know why, for some reason that right front spring. So let's make that, yep. And then the other thing, coil binding. So the truck, if you know anything about it, the truck coil binds. They don't use shock springs, they don't use packers, that kind of stuff. It's just
The leader has
springs.
just done a
And once you get below a
22.8.
certain point, the spring basically compresses to a point that it can't come down anymore. There's just so much weight on it, it's just stuck, essentially. And it's supposed to give better ride heights, or more
Got a
consistent
car
ride heights.
approaching.
It just
Watch your
depends
mirrors.
on what options you have. Like, we can't do it in this car to the same extent you can in the truck, but underneath like 450, I think it's like underneath usually 425, where you use that shorter spring, remember how I talked about in the rear, it actually can quill bind a little bit. Not a lot, but a little bit. And that could be part of the problem here. We just went to a 450 and a left front, so that definitely stopped it from quill binding if it was. And it feels like it's in the ground even more now. And that might be because it's not cold binding anymore, if it was. Which is, again, a big if. It's hard to tell on this car because they took the spring deflection out, and that's usually how you would determine if and how much you're cold binding.
Okay, you just did a 23.0.
Out the gate, though, first lap was my fastest of the session. So you see we're finding a little bit of speed with that little bit stiffer left front. I think that's because it's not in the ground as much.
That's your quickest lap.
It feels like it's pushing on entry a little bit.
That lap was a 22.9.
So it might just barely be touching, but it's not kind of smacking anymore. Alright, so let's go ahead and check it out now. And this is a lot of what it is getting the splitter low, getting the splitter level, and not hitting the ground. It's repetitive, and sometimes it's really annoying. It usually doesn't take me this long, but I'm also flipping through and trying to explain things. And I'm trying not to make too many big swings on it, because I want to stay true to where the set was at before. Alright, so still hitting, and even the first lap, 209. Yeah, so when we took that, at what point is it? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so you can see this is 0, and right there is the lowest point it got. The only point that it hit was right there, and maybe right there if you see it's 0.054, nope, negative 006, so there it is. You can see right there it's showing where it is in the current time. So it hit right there, and then just this one mark right here. Did not hit in 1 and 2 at all, so it's just 3 and 4. So we made progress, but I think it got to a point worse. It's gonna before it gets better, since I think we were coil binding just a little bit. It was trying to anyway. Let's go ahead and take this up to a 5. And then here's another thing we can do. We're gonna take this down to a 2. Oh, let me go ahead and pull the sim back up for you. So what I did was I dropped this arm asymmetry to 2, and that junked my preload. But if I were to uncheck this, my ride heights are fine. Crazy, right? So I'll just make this 0, attach, boom, just fine. I'll just bring that down so it's lower. So it's pretty low. We could level this out, in theory. Nah, I'm not gonna do it. So let's go ahead, hit done. What that's gonna do, by the way, since I didn't explain it, basically if you think about arm asymmetry in the front end, what this does is try to level the splitter. So a higher value is going to pull the left side down and the right side up. So if we go to a lower value, we're kind of setting it back. So the left side should come up a little bit and the right side is going to come down. Same thing as adding positive link slack. So this might actually level out all the ride heights a little more, as well as help get the left front out of the ground.
There's some traffic coming. Be careful when you blend onto the track.
There we go. Typically for arm asymmetry values, you can be anywhere. This track has this seemingly a decent amount of banking, so I mean I don't really have a tip for what to use where, because it's just kind of dependent on what you need and what the set, like what you're building towards. Like if you have something in mind that you're trying to make work because you think it might be good, or you just like where you're going with it, then keep going and just use that as a tool. Preload and link slack are things that typically I don't use. A lot of people have bad opinions on them, or think they're just a way to achieve something that you can't do the right way. I think arm asymmetry is enough to get you what you need 90% of the time. Negative preload can get you there the rest of the time. But a level splitter is definitely a huge thing. And that arm asymmetry doesn't just affect the front end though, because the front end and rear end are connected at some point. When I say level out the ride heights, that is going to affect the rear of the car as well. So still got some pace. Feels like the rear is sliding a little bit in the middle of the corner, and it might be.
You're currently 0.1 off the pace.
It's kind of fighting me a little bit there, like it's in the ground, but not slow. Alright.
Don't be too aggressive. Keep your eye on your tap. No one's coming.
Ooh, flag for speeding. My bad. Alright, let's go again and do this, because we love Motec. Okay, so the lowest point right there on the fast lap is actually good. The right side's hitting, and that's because we lowered that arm asymmetry, and that arm asymmetry brought the right side down and the left side up. That's okay because this is not much contact. You see it's 0.14 or 0.014, and that's why I added in this version, I changed the decimal count so you can see exactly how close it is. If this hits for a couple laps, the right side will almost always come up. So again, I'm not in the slightest bit concerned about this. You can see here the right heights might be a little more level. So if I go back, so let me go back to like our first run in this, right? A little bit off here. There's a little bit of split. So let's do the most recent one at 949. You see they're almost on top of each other. So there's a little more you could do to like get these a little closer, at least down the or in the turns. But I'm not really too worried about it. It's not. This isn't enough like rollover or anything that I would be concerned. You see the left side is a little bit higher than the right, but it's not to an extreme, especially because the right side is going to come up over the run. Both of them probably. Generally. So let's go ahead. I'm okay with that. Something I put in this though, to make this easy, and this is something that's I'm trying to use to get a better understanding of some things. I'll explain them a little better later, hopefully. Is this right here. So this page it's got a just general information, but this will actually tell you when you're hitting or when you're rolling over a little bit too much. In general, rollover being again left side higher than right. So you see it is a little bit there, and this is to show where we're at on the track. But the fact that it's flashing like that just means that it's really close and it's just going back and forth. So it's pretty uneven on exit. That was the second half of the corner, but that was generally when you'd be on throttle. So as you're moving the weight towards the rear, probably more the right rear than anything. And I'm going to get a better weight transfer, basically image to display that later. We can see though that the left side is probably coming up during that, and that's expected. A lot of times you do want to minimize that, but it's alright. It's kind of hard to do here. So, what's up? I see you in the session, Pete. Alright, so I'm good with where the left side right heights are right now. At least from what I could tell, they weren't hitting. It's still pretty low. It could probably get higher just to be safe in the long run, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. If you take this set and it's in the ground in 30 laps, then maybe add some left front spring. Gonna meet you too, man. Add some left front spring, and again, the shock springs you could take up, but you don't have to. It's completely up to you. The diameter can affect the right heights as well. Oh, gotcha. Let's see here. Let's look at balance. What was our tire wear? 98, 97, so it's still trending a little bit loose, but it was a little snug in the center, and I think that was partially due to right heights. You know what we're going to do? We're going to go ahead and do about 5 to 10 laps, because I want to see tire wear after 5 to 10 and see how much it changes or trends. And then we'll kind of analyze where it's at handling wise, kind of keep some notes maybe, or just track what it's doing, and then go from there, because right now it's got pace. I mean, you can see I'm running 22.9s in it, and I can share this in the room as well to you, Neil. Not everybody's going to be able to do the same thing time-wise. So I've been on and off of iRacing since like 2013 or something like that, and I was like 15. 24 now, so it's you know, dramatically. I was actually 14 or 13 when I joined. I can't even remember, but you know, it's been a while. I only got into setups last year, so and started learning last year, and it's just been I had some time after a deployment to kind of figure this shit out while I was waiting during the pandemic. So it's fun. It's challenging. Every day is something new. I enjoy getting into this stuff. So, and then I've got my Discord that I'm gonna start making, or I guess officially open since I shared it to somebody.
Okay, that lap was a 23.0.
So it felt like it was on the ground there, just for the simple fact that it pushed up. But the other thing could have been that I was on the throttle a little bit there.
Okay, you just did a 23.0.
So we're just gonna go to like where it says 40 on my screen. So pretty consistent zeros here. That ain't bad. One thing to note, like on here, something that I've heard before and that I think rings pretty true is I had to open this. This is a bad lap. You don't always just want to roll in off the throttle, especially if you're trying to kill speed. If you're waiting to get back in that throttle and you're not using the brake, a lot of the times you're hurting the car. At tracks where you have a lot of off throttle time, it's not a bad idea to drag the brake just a little bit, because it helps against the forces reacting or acting on the tire as you're trying to slow down all the resistance right there. And that can heat up the right front and make it fall off. I've found a lot of success in a little bit of brake, maybe when you don't think you need it, going a long ways in a long run.
That puts you 0.5 off the leader's pace. That lap was.
And I really like to dime in the corner here, kind of come in maybe low-ish, drag the brake a little bit, come up, get on the throttle, try to come down for the exit just to have a good angle out. This is getting to be, it's sliding out, maybe a hair bit snug in.
Okay, that lap
But
was a
the other
23.4.
thing that I kind of shoot for when I'm doing adjustments is getting the car as even as possible on tire wear. So the thing that you can do is shift the balance of the car tire wear wise, and usually handling wise, based on how you drive it. So this right here usually is a little bit towards the right front because I like tighter cars. But if I wanted to free it up, I just get the car to slide in on entry. So you can, when you do this enough and you start learning the little tricks, you maybe go into 3 here, kind of jerk the wheel a little bit, try to get it sideways and use some throttle to get it sideways. And the more you get it on the right rear, the more the right rear heats up and wears, the more this thing will slide. So if you ever have a tight car, you're able to free it up if you drive it the right way, kind of thing. A lot of guys that do that or get good at that are unbelievably quick. I'm not very good at it. Some people are just demons with it, I swear. And those are the guys that you don't want to meet in a fixed race. I've got pretty decent pace, but man, there's some guys on here that are insane. I had a buddy of mine who I was learning with, and man, he'd just get into anything and just he's a tenth or two faster than anybody. I mean, there were very few people that could match him, even without practice. Alright, so this is, I'm going to finish this lap, and then we're going to pull over here and look at it. So 670 after probably near 10 laps. The thing I was feeling there was a little bit of a slide out, and I was using throttle control on exit, and it prevented it from sliding too much. So that wasn't the worst thing in the world. Throttle control is huge at places like this. If you get the car snug enough, you can kind of nail it off the corner, and it's a good thing. But also, maybe you get too snug and you can't turn in the center of the corner, and that's not a good thing. It depends on your preference on how you want to drive it. A lot of people, I had guys that I gave my set, and they were just too tight in the middle of the run, and they were off pace. But according to the practice laps, my pace was matching some solid pace. It's all on how you drive it and your personal preferences.
Back to normal now.
Generally, what it comes down to on iRacing is one setup can be OP. It can be fast, fast as crap. The same set with multiple people driving it. You just have to figure out how to drive it. But at other times, I think it just comes down to if you can really dial in a set for you and somebody else can't run it, that's just how it is. I mean, you got to have what you like. So let's look at this. So I see 95, 93 for my tire wear. So that's trending loose. One thing to note here is my hot tire pressure is 54.8, 55.4. So it's about, it's getting to a point of being like what, almost a pound higher on the right rear. It's like half a pound roughly higher on the right rear. So as you take that into consideration, the buildup over a run is going to constitute maybe what the handling is doing. So if the right rear is getting bigger than the right front, there's the potential that you could be sliding, because generally when you add something to the right rear, you generally get looser, especially air pressure. Air pressure can be huge because your tires, I think David Cater said in a video, like little springs. So the more you adjust it, it's like you're adjusting a spring. So they can be good handling adjustments in race, but I won't touch them. If I wanted to free the thing up, I could decrease the split. If I want to tighten it up, I could decrease the split to tighten it, or increase the split and drop these tire pressures to loosen it up more. Apologies. So as far as this thing handling wise, just a little bit slick out of the corner. It just wants to slide just a little bit. So the one thing we can do here, let's think this through. And actually, before I do that, let me make sure, because I almost always look at telemetry before I make any kind of adjustment here. I apologize, my cat has left the scene, and I'm just as upset as everybody else. If nobody saw him in the beginning, he was chilling. So pulling up Dover, it's about 10 laps. That's never accurate. So let's go ahead and go to general, quick ride height. So you can see here, On lap 1, I'm barely in. On lap 9, I'm just barely hitting. It's okay to barely hit as long as it doesn't upset the car too much, and I wasn't upset too much, but again, long run, this is just going to dramatically get worse. And I think it also kind of came down to how I entered the corner. And you see that was probably the lap that I threw the car into the corner. I pitched it and it kind of slid, and it didn't quite do the same or go in as deep. Or it could have been that this was the lap. It's hard to say. It also could be if you hit the apron, that kind of thing. But this is just a little bit lower than I'd like it to be. Either way, for the first 10 laps. I'm not going to change it now, though. I'll let you guys kind of keep working on that and get the aero platform and the ride heights exactly where you want them. It's a pretty good start. You're not far off. VRS telemetry, though, is just, for me, it's not my favorite thing to work with. So I'm okay with that. As you can see, the right side came up like I said it would. So lap 1, it never actually hit this time. Lap 2, it never hit. Lap 3, 4, let's go to 9, 10. As you can see, the numbers, I think, just got dramatically higher. 0.1, it's just up towards about 0.1. Compared to lap 1, it was like 0.05. Lap 2, it was above 1. And a lot of that is not always consistent. It's based on travel, so you have to take into consideration how you're driving the car. And if you're missing a line or you're hitting the exact same line, brake, that kind of stuff, affecting how much. Yeah, I'll get the workbook. I'll post it in Motec, or I'll post it in the Discord. Sorry. It can affect how much the car travels. You just have to think about every little thing that can cause weight transfer or cause that spring or shock spring to compress. You know, if you're turning into the corner, the car's leaning in a certain direction, and it's going to cause weight on that direction, and or weight transferred in that direction, which is going to cause the car to come down more. One cool thing that you can kind of look at for reference, not that it's terribly useful, at least to me, and if you go into Commodore's Garage, there is some in-depth information on this, so you might be able to find some use out of it. The corner weights, so 846, 935, you kind of have an idea of how much weight is there to transfer. So like, obviously this isn't like 846 pounds of weight is going to shift forward, all of it anyway, but with momentum, you know, some weight is going to kind of want to shift forward. If that makes any kind of sense, you have a general idea of where all that weight is coming from. So we have more weight on the left rear, which is likely going to go towards the right front, because so like I said, if you drop the left rear spring, your right front comes up. But if you were to raise your left rear, your right front would go down more. So you can affect the front end just with your rear springs kind of thing. It all kind of relates. Making a change down here in the right rear can affect the left front. Good times. So what I'm going to do as far as handling goes, I'm going to reduce the split because it was just sliding too much. So I'm going to put this at 500. That increase in left rear spring is likely going to bring the right front down. I'm okay with that. But the one thing I'm not okay with, I'm just going to add a camber here just to shift that right height up. Cool. The one thing I'm not okay with is the fact that the left front is still hitting. So we're going to go ahead and go another 5 or 50 pounds up on the spring. All right. And maybe I'll take that camber back out now. And I'm going to take this up to like 6,000 on both sides, because, and at that point we're just too close to 7. I'm just going to go to 7. Mostly because I just want this thing to stop hitting at this point. We've spent way too much time just messing around with that. I got 5 minutes left in the session, but so let's go ahead, go full screen here. And let's see what it does this time.
Track is clear, go hard.
So the decrease in left rear spring, or I'm sorry, the increase in left rear spring to decrease the split from left to right should snug it up. Left rear spring is going to mostly affect center and exit, mostly exit, but I think it's a good change for center if you're also having issues on the exit. But one thing you don't want to misdiagnose is that your car is bad on exit, like it's just really loose on exit because you're tight in the center. Tight in the center is a completely different thing than loose on exit. generally they go together in a simple fact that you're probably just putting too much wheel into it or fighting the car too much to get to turn, that you're hurting it on exit. It's causing that snap loose. This thing is interesting. Lap 1.
That puts you 0.1.
And it's kind of pushing up, so I think it's on the track still. How wonderful is that? So if you're tight in the center, loose in the center, that kind of thing, center, the best adjustment is cross weight. As far as exit, again, it's left rear spring, up or down. Entry, big thing is caster split, so you can increase your caster split from left to right to basically give you more turn in. Typically, I think you can raise your left front spring or shock spring. In this car, it's hard to really get an advantage out of your front springs, just because they're there almost solely for aerodynamic purposes, and generally they're useless other than that, in my opinion. Some people will disagree, but I can tell you this car is not doing what I want it to do right now, though. It is got to be in the track. The way that it's also might just be that I increased that left rear spring, and that's not helping anything, but I wanted to take that looseness out of it. Again, I like a little bit snugger car. Feels easier to drive at this point. And I can get in pretty deep. I just want to let it roll in the center and then get out. And I think right there, you could see where it was red, and then I was in the throttle, and I could feel, I have the Fanatec V30 pedals. I could feel vibration on the pedals, and it was the tire wanting to slide because it's too much throttle and it didn't want to turn. So I can tell this is probably still going to hit the right rear the wrong way, just because, not necessarily that it's loose, but I'm just sliding the tire because I'm trying to make it turn, and the car doesn't really want to. It wants to just kind of point off. So it just doesn't have enough grip.
That lap was at 23.4. Take a look at your temperature gauge. You got a hot dog wrapper on your grill.
And then I know you mentioned something about storage issues. So you can get a portable hard drive that you can put all your stuff on. I mean, it's possible. What I recommend doing though is like Google Drive or Dropbox. You can actually get the app for either one to put it on your computer. I don't think it counts as local storage because technically you're accessing something remotely, as long as you don't let it sync to your computer exactly. And then what I'll do is set up Mu to export telemetry for Mu. It converts the file so that you can read it as a MOTEC file, and you can set it so that it automatically exports those files to the directory that is for the Google Drive or the Dropbox, so that it's being stored on a cloud service. And then if you share that folder with somebody, like for you, if you were to share it with Pete, it would allow you to both. Yeah, exactly. I use Google Drive and Dropbox, both of them honestly. But it would allow you to both be able to access the telemetry. So you can basically, your dad could go look at your telemetry, or he could, back and forth, vice versa. I've used it before. It kind of gets counterproductive if you don't both have like a premium accounts, because you can run out of space pretty quick. But like you can get like 100 gigs for like $1 or something on Google. Yeah, I'll save it. It's still missing something, I can tell you that. I'm going to save this as like 1.4.1. How about that? So tire wear, 96.96, so it's even though. So as you can see there, it didn't shift any one way. That was only a couple laps. I have to imagine it would have shifted maybe a little bit to the rear. As you can see, like the temps are pretty close. They're pretty much even at this point, like 238 in the middle, 240, 241, 243.
During the race, and let's have fun.
Thank you, Spotter. Can you shut up? Thank you. So being as this was getting hotter, I have a good indication that it was going to go more towards the right rear. And again, I think that was more the tire just sliding off the corner. And that's just a little bit of handling. It's really hard to say. I want to see what the ride heights were right there. because I felt like I was in the track and that was part of it. So we'll do that really quick. Motec, go over here. Motec. I'm going to stop this from running because it's annoying. Let's go right here. Okay, so not in the track. Not in the track. Way not in the track. So it actually did what I wanted, and it took it out of the track for the most part, or the entire part. So why was it so tight? I think it was because it was the first time we felt the car doing what it was supposed to do. Now if you see here down at the bottom, the left side is higher a lot of the corner. I think we saw it a little bit earlier towards the exit, so I was okay with it, but now, yeah, not so much. Let's look at like one of these laps. It's just kind of getting a little bit higher, I think, than I'd like. So it might be a little bit too much rollover there. So this is where I would take that arm asymmetry and change it back to, what were we at? We're at 2 right now, so I go back to 3 or 4, and that would probably balance that back out. Maybe 4 to make a big swing at it. But that's going to bring the left side back down, so you might have to add some more packer. Shouldn't. I don't know if it's going to go all the way in the track though, because we added so much shock spring and the packer's already so high. But yeah, it's I have a feeling that was probably a rollover. At this point, if you were to decrease the left rear spring split, like maybe just drop the left rear spring 25 pounds, and then I would just say throttle control and drag the brake a little bit on entry. Kind of be easy with it. Don't overdrive the car. You're probably going to be in good shape. It's not going to be the fastest thing in the world, but it just kind of was odd to me. And if you'd like, I can really quickly. I've got time. I don't know how much time you guys have got, but I don't go to sleep till like 1 a.m. because I work 10 to 7. So I can build one from scratch really quick if you'd like, and show you kind of how quickly I would do it. Just throwing a baseline together. Let me post that set in the Xfinity public sets. And if you don't want it posted publicly, I can delete it as soon as you grab it, because you're the only one really in there. So Dover setup 141. There you go. And you don't even have access to this room. That's cool. One moment. Let me fix this bit of issue. So there should be a channel in the Discord now called Xfinity that you should have access to, and there should be a setup in it, hopefully. Alright, so I'm going to go to a different room, and I'm going to build a new set from scratch like I do every week. I'm not going to put no crazy shit in it. By the way, I'm probably going to have some bad language if I haven't already. My apologies. I'm generally not going to catch it because it's just vocabulary for me at this point. So how I typically am going to do this is I'm going to start with the baseline. You can start with a fixed if you want. I just don't like usually everything for every fixed setup they started with the baseline, and you could tell based on the shocks and the ballast, tire pressures. Like there's little things that match, so you can tell what they started with. I just don't like when they take their kind of bias and put it in towards what they want. I'd rather do that myself. Generally, I would start with like just a setup for each kind of type. Appreciate it, Paul. I'm sorry, Pete. I can't read today. It's so tiny. I'm going crazy. Anyway, I don't like their biases. So what I'm gonna do is take the baseline, like I do every week. You should really not start from the baseline every week. You should have a setup you build for short tracks, intermediate, and long, and just make them work from week to week, because you can. It's super easy to just take one set and make it work the next week. I just don't like doing that, because you'll never know what you're missing. And there are people that will come out with some stuff, and you just all of a sudden you're off pace one week because you're using the same stuff. In the Commodore's garage, he insists, use the same stuff. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. I'm just gonna keep trying to reinvent the wheel, but I gotta get better about that. Anyway, I am loaded up in the sim. I'm gonna load the iRacing baseline, and I'm gonna get started building a set. How I probably would do it here. So I'm gonna put 25s on the tire pressures, because I know I want to start maybe a little higher than 22. I think 25 to 30 is a good range. I'm not going to elaborate too much more than that. So I already said, like, lower tire pressures can be maybe more long run speed, but it hasn't been necessarily always true. iRacing has said that at one point in the forums, somebody that did the tires or the tire model or worked with them had said that you should see a significant amount of pace compared to the other guys running 22 versus guys running like 28. It usually never does. That doesn't make a difference. If you can make it work, you can make it work. But I don't see a point in wasting my time looking at it. So if you go too low, you're giving up too much speed up front. It's just for no reason. So I'm just going to put my biases in here. So we're going to start with no ballast. Basically, if you're too loose in, or maybe if you're just trying to look for some extra drive, I like to put some weight forward. Another thing is like getting some of that weight off of the rear. Sometimes it's not a bad thing. I like higher cross sets. I'm going to shoot for 53. So I'm going to unattach the bar. I'm going to set it at 3 to start. Going to make this 2. I'm just going to put it in the middle. It can be anywhere we want. I don't really see. You can make, the one thing that you should know is you can make anything work, and that's why I didn't want to change your set just wildly. Basically, you don't have to have any one thing to be quick. You just have to have it balanced right. The one thing you do have to have is a splitter seal. That is important, I promise. But as far as like combinations of anything, you can do pretty much whatever you want. You can do high cross, you can do low cross, you can have some high springs. Some tracks you probably going to want those low springs, namely like Indy, Auto Club, the big Pocono, like that kind of stuff. But this track, you can do about anything. It's just about finding the balance. Some things are going to fall off a little bit faster, but you can get that short run pace out of it without a whole lot of work. So I already know what I'm gonna shoot for 53. That's just a number I like. You can go 56. You can pick 50. I think 53 is a generic number I started with when I started learning. At one point, I know people were trying to make 45 cross work. I thought consistently. I know VRS does it, and you can. I don't like it. I just didn't like driving the sets like that. I just felt like I lost talent doing it. But then I went back to high cross or higher cross, like 50 plus sets, and those are just more my ballpark. For some reason, there's a difference to me. Like I said, I'm just going to do 7,000. I'm just throwing some stiffer springs in it because while we do want travel here, I don't want it in the ground, and I want these packers lower. So I'm going to put that at 2, 1.5. Let's go ahead and get these down so that I don't have to worry about the camber, because that's going to change dramatically when we get these changed. So I'm just going to get this all the way down as far as I can. And again, we want to, yeah, that's a good number. So anytime you get like this and it's like, what the fuck's going on? Your right front's too low. So it's within a real tight area. You're almost never, like pretty much you're going to get 3. You can get 3 pretty much blinking yellow, but you'll never get 4. And if you do, then you're probably doing some crazy stuff that just wasn't worth the time. I mean, maybe it is, but I don't think so. I've never seen anybody really get all 4. and
The track
really find a
temperature
benefit from it.
increasing. It is now 38 degrees.
If so, one thing to note is like if you ever get to a point where like the setup says it's failed, but you can't find anything blinking red. Obviously, there's something blinking red there. Take the spring perch on the left front or the right front and go up until it actually starts moving, because you can actually take this to a point down where it stops moving, and when it does that, basically your spring deflection is out of passing, and you can't see it because they took spring deflection values away. So thank you for that. No comment. Anyway, I got 800, 7,000. I put some random packers in at the start. I like to do 1616 right now. It's just been kind of my thing. The travel to coil bind. So like I said, I was talking about coil binding earlier with the Cup cars and now the Xfinity cars. You can set this so I could run, and if you hover over it, it gives you like a tooltip at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, you can. So as you can see, you have to have 350 pound spring in it or less in the right rear for this to work. So right now, if you were to put a 350 pound spring in it right now, it'll coil bind, but it's going to be in the ground. This travel to coil bind will allow you to run that low spring and get the right height really, really low in the rear without hitting. So what it is how much the spring is allowed to travel before it coil binds. So you can set this to say at 3 inches of travel it coil binds, or 2.5. That half an inch can make a huge difference to keep the car from hitting the ground. So this is just a fine-tuning thing. Use it at your leisure, but I don't think it's necessary, especially at tracks like this. So we're 1616. I'm going to put this over at like, what, 500? And I'll keep that 1,000 pound spring in it. Like I said, the right rear is more for right heights. The left rear is going to be a handling adjustment here. So one thing you can do for, let me get these fixed. So there we go. I typically don't want the left rear to be, or the left front to be higher than the right front, or left rear higher than the right rear. I'm going to want this camera above 5, so that's going to have to change. So 1616, these maxed out. Track bars, that's what I was about to talk about. So if you have a big track bar split, you can get this positive 6, negative 6 toe. So like I think the max, basically 4 inches was supposed to be the maximum amount needed for maximum skew. I think it's kind of weird on this car. Christian Schallner has a video on it in my Discord in the resources folder or channel. There is links to his YouTube channel. There's a truck video from like 2-3 years ago. And it's not relevant because a lot of it has changed, and it was on an old tire model, and they were like running like max camber and some other stuff. I mean, it was wild back in the day, but a lot of the stuff is still relevant, and one thing that he talked about is that track bar split and max skew. And skew is basically almost like canting the rear of the car out. You know, you're trying to generate side force kind of thing. This helps achieve that, but it's not the only way to do it. You can do it with even track bars at times. You can do it with right height split. There are several ways to do it. It's just a matter of messing around until you find what works and what you need. I don't anymore like running too big of a track bar split. At one point, VRS said that like what they said basically that max or a big track bar split was what they were seeing was better long run pace. I don't believe it. I don't think so. I don't see a benefit, so I'm gonna run what I want to run. Test it though. That's the biggest thing. I'm gonna throw some left front camber into this because that's what I want. Generally, this doesn't matter. Honestly, I think you could run it at like 3, and you're not gonna see any difference, like almost at all. It is what it is. Right front camber, we're gonna go to like 3.5. Just throwing a value in it that's between 3 and 4. That's fine. So I want this down at like 519 is fine, as long as it's like blinking yellow. I'd like for these to be low, but they don't always have to be on the ground. So put that at 1.6. So truck arm mounts. The higher the mount, the will basically allow you to free up the corner on exit. You can do any combination of this, and you can find some speed. Sometimes not. Sometimes they're worthless. I'm going to leave it bottom. Rear end ratio is limited to what the real cars are allowed to run, and that has us limited at 411. It won't let us change it. I've already tried. So with all of that, I have now gone through the entire car like I've done in my Kentucky video. I I think that was the video. Yeah, I worked through every corner of the car and just kind of adjusted. So 53.8 is my cross. It's pretty damn close because I wasn't even trying, considering I didn't pay any attention. So if I wanted to get to 53, while this is still unattached, I'm gonna go left arrow, right arrow, right arrow, left arrow, and now I'm at 52.7, and my right heights are all still about where I want them. Fantastic. So that's the pattern to go down. I'm going to put this at 0. I'm going to attach the bar. So now I'm at 3, no link slack, 28, 52.7, right heights are good. This is what I want. So I'm going to put this at like -1, +1. Do research on these because you might or might not find speed there. I don't know. Think about how you would want your car set up in real life. If you're mechanically inclined, which I am not, so I like IT. I was pretty good at it. I drive a forklift for a living right now, so there's that. At least I can do that well. I'm not mechanically inclined in the slightest bit, so as far as like real life, I don't work on stuff that often. I'd like to. I want to get in some real motorsports would be cool, but
Exit's clear. Go, go, go.
there's this for now, so I'm not gonna claim to know a amazing amount of things, but here we are, just trying to make everybody more competitive and in a better state. You can invite them to the Discord as well. That's going to be a public resource, and it has all those links in there. Even a PDF file for all of the Commodore's garage, in case it ever were to be destroyed. It'll be maintained in a PDF that lives on in several Discords. Alright, so this feels pretty good out of the gate. 23 flat. I don't know what the weather is in this room compared to the other one. Weather can be a huge difference. I don't think this is exactly hitting. It might have just touched, just barely. But it's got some pace in it. Considering I just clicked a bunch of buttons.
That lap was a 22.9.
Little snug in the center, but not bad. I think it's got a little more predictability out of the corner. Alright.
Okay, that lap was a 22.9.
But not, it's not every week that you're just gonna be able to, like, you know, just take a set and do that. Like, you gotta spend some, I've spent some time here, so I already had, and I didn't build this like my other one. I just kind of threw some stuff in it, but, you know, you gotta work on it a lot. So there was one week that I quite literally put a set together in 15 minutes, didn't make a single change all week that made it any faster, and it was dominating. It does happen, but it's not real, you know, common, like all the time kind of thing. That I think was luck. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and pull this up. So as you can see, I am in the ground a little bit on the left side and the right side. Again, the right side will come up, so not terribly concerned. But here's what I am concerned about: rollover. I don't like that. And that comes from the right side being lower right here. So as you can see it. So this one, because both ends are in the track, it's kind of hard for me to make an adjustment on it with arm asymmetry. So like what I would like to do is level out the front end, like the splitter. So use the arm asymmetry to again kind of drop, maybe actually raise the left front and drop the right front, and that would fix, or the sides, not the front, not just the front, but that would fix and level out the car as far as telemetry is concerned. But because the right side is also lower, in some areas, I think what we're going to have to do is go down on the arm asymmetry, which is going to bring the, oh no, I'm sorry, we got to go up. So we're going to go to 4, and that's going to but it's going to keep the left front in the ground. So I'm sorry, I'm just having a brain fart. So as I go higher up on the arm symmetry here, so like say I take this to a value of 4, what you're going to see is that the left front is going to be more on the ground now, but it should have raised the right front, and it should probably going to go 5 because I think it was a decent amount of split there at times. But it's still going to keep the left front in the ground. It's not going to help that much, or that fact. So one thing I could do to help the left front is I could either drop the right rear spring a decent bit, but then I would also have to compensate and drop the left rear, and that would pull it out of the ground. Or I can choose Packer. I don't like to run my Packers that high, but considering I really liked how this felt. It being in the track didn't help anything, but so what we're gonna do is go ahead and go like 1 point, because I added a lot of arm symmetry. I can't just do a couple clicks. I need to go. I was at 1.5, so we gone up. Let's see here. 1, 2. We'll go to 1.7 and do a run on it, and let's see what this looks like. And I think this is probably a cool room. I can even tell by the way it looks. So that's where a lot of that pace comes from. But
your pit exit is clear.
You guys are welcome to jump in this room if you'd like, but don't feel obligated. And I'll post this one too if you guys want to look at it. And I did make, so I had a set that had 407,000 in the springs in the front, and you can make it work. It's just, I felt uncontrollable at times. Like, it's just so stiff in a way. It likes to bounce. It might have just been too low, but for some reason a little bit stiffer spring isn't the worst thing here, in my opinion. And out of the gate, it's pretty quick here. We already knew that was going to be a thing, though.
Okay, you just did a 22.9. You're less than a tenth off your own pace.
I gotcha. I just saw somebody was in the last room with the name. I thought
was at 22.9.
pretty good laps, a little snug in the center, but I kind of like snug in the center here. Again, it's just based on my preference in line, and that line is typically, at least from when I was practicing, it was pretty quick.
You're currently 0.1 off your best.
Seeing a little bit of fall off here. It's already in the 9s, which is still fast, but that's what's going to happen when you run that fast up front. So I'm just going to run a couple laps here, look at the tire wear, look at the ride heights, and I can tell you that I'm already comfortable enough with this. I would go run in a race, but it is possibly in the ground. I don't want to be too confident. I think it might be in the ground, so it's going to tighten up, and it might be a little bit too tight also, so that might not help it long run wise. To compensate for that, I would get it out of the ground, Packers, maybe some more Packer, and then as far as if it's still tight, maybe one click of track bar up on both ends, and it would probably be enough to shift the balance just enough that it wouldn't be too tight, and you'd be holding some pretty solid pace.
That lap was at 23.2. You are now 0.3 slower than your best.
Alright, I'm just going to finish this lap and we'll pull over. So
let's take a look at your water temps. I see it's
alright, 313.
Okay, that lap was a 23.3. That puts you 0.4 off your best.
This has been an hour and a half. No wonder my voice hurts, just trying to talk and talk and talk. Still named baseline, so I mean, you guys saw I started from nothing. 97, 96, so it's got a slight split after, how many laps did we do? I started on 5, I did 11, so that was like 6 laps. 7 technically, I think. So a little under 10 laps, and it's got a 1% split. If I were to even round that up to, if it were a 10 lap and it had 1%, then it 30 laps technically it should have a 3% split. It'll likely increase a little faster than that, especially as you start wearing the tire or sliding the tire a little more. So
Take
like
a
it
look
might
at
be
your
a
tips if
1%
you can.
split from like laps 11 to 20, but then after 20 you might start sliding the right rear, heating it up a little more. You start seeing more wear on it, and then it might, especially as it frees up because of that tire split or wear split, it might become significantly worse, and that split will increase much faster or at a faster rate over the run. So maybe just a little tight in the center, but the tire wear doesn't reflect it. And that's a good thing here, because a lot of the times what you run into is a lot of guys have really, really worn right fronts and can't turn after so many laps. So that's nothing to complain about right there. I would do a run in it, and I would see how it goes. The one thing that I don't recommend though is just jumping into a race. So like one thing that I do heavily, right? And I'll post a link to this timesheet. I'll even modify the template if I need to, but let me do screen. So what do I got? Let me pull up and see if that's right. Okay, cool. So this is for a bunch of my teammates, but I have like a time compare kind of thing. But what I do on my times, uh, if I can find the energy, and let me make sure my mic's added here to the source. All right. Anyway, so what I would do here is do a run. I did 45 laps. I actually wrote software to log specifically to this timesheet, like to this style of timesheet. Um, I just don't think it's at a point that I can make it public. But generally, I would like manually type these in. I have 2 screens now. I just only use one for the sim, so it's kind of easy for me. This template is free and available to like anyone. But what I'll do is just manually enter the laps, and then I don't even have to add the green, like the color, what that red is slower, green is faster. If I just type in like 22.100, obviously it was faster, and it just told me that kind of thing. At the bottom, it will calculate, so it'll calculate your average pace. So like 24 second lap time, or I'm sorry, yeah, 24 seconds a lap over a 30 lap average. So on and so forth. It gives you your overall pace, and it'll tell me how much faster or slower I was over a run. So this run, the biggest difference was like a little bit of track bar in the setup, and I was 2.5 seconds faster over 45 laps. So that's pretty good. It'll show me where I was faster in the run. Obviously there, when I was a little snugger, I had a little more speed up front. I might have been pushing a little bit harder. Who knows? I mean, obviously those are about the same lap times. Second half of the run though was much better. This is a great tool to be able to analyze when you're gaining or losing time on your set. And you can even carry tire data over to see kind of what you're doing. But that way you know if you're wasting your time or not, kind of thing. You know, I don't like to run a tremendous amount of laps and then go into a room thinking, or a race thinking I'm going to be phenomenal, when in reality I just wasted a bunch of time for no reason, and just get my ass kicked. It'd be like that though sometimes. So let's go ahead and go look at telemetry real quick, see how far off it was. I don't think it was too bad. Nope, look, we are in the air on the left side. Right side is digging, but that will go away. It did go away. This kind of dropped, but it's not in the ground. If it is, it'll be slightly. The one thing you can see here is overall the right height is high, so it's in the air for the most part, which means it's not sealed. And that average ride height here is really high. It is much higher than I would like, but because the track surface is so bumpy and annoying, you can't get much lower without hitting the ground, unfortunately. It just depends on travel amount. So, and as the run increases, as you see every lap, it just gets lower. And it might have been line or whatever. I might have fucked up here. It's just going to keep dropping though. So that is pretty much that. This set is I feel confident doing a 45 lap run in it and comparing it to the other set kind of situation. So that is all I really need to do on it. So on that note, oh, there we go. I'll post this in the Discord as well. I'm just gonna name it Baseline Dover Pub, and it may be good, it may not. I can tell you that based on what it looked like, it was gonna be all right. But I think this is a relatively cool room. 71, 100, so it's kind of cool. Moderately low usage. So if there are any more questions or whatever, I mean, shoot away in the comments. But if not, then that's going to be enough for me, and I will just post this in that Discord, and you guys are free to attack it or talk about it, I guess, because Pete can come crew chief you or something. Yeah, so on the timesheet, is that what you're referencing? On the timesheet, I did do that. So I haven't done. I don't keep up with it as much as I should. That's the downside. So like it can be kind of hard um, as far as like getting the energy sometimes to go do run after run after run. But if you're trying to be competitive on a weekly basis, that timesheet is gold. I'm telling you, you are wasting time if you're not using it. Especially while you're learning and you're new. If you don't know what you're going for. So like if I were to give you advice as far as like getting better at this or just pace, which I mean you had some pretty good raw pace up front. Um, Oh yeah, your setup folder. So if you go into your on your computer, if you go to your like folder icon on the bottom, here, actually let me. I don't know if I can do this, but let me try. Screen. Cool, I got it. So if I were to go over here and I go, I have a lot of stuff on here. I'm sorry, it's gonna be a nightmare. So if I go into my documents and I go iRacing and I go setups and then let's go down to this one is called the Stock Cars to Toyota Camry or a Supra, I'm sorry. And then you could just add a folder. So just like new folder Dover. I don't know if I already have a Dover folder. I don't think so. And then if I were to grab all my Dover setups.
The car behind has just done a 24.0.
And just throw them in. I already have a Dover folder. Wow, awesome. Then they will show up in the sim. So even though I just changed that, I could go in here and go Dover, and they should be there, but they're not. Phenomenal.
The car behind you just did a 23.4.
Well, that makes me look like a jackass, doesn't it? That's because I didn't actually move them. Now let's try it. Yeah, there they are. Phenomenal. I didn't make a change to this, but we'll save it, I guess. Okay. Okay, yeah, you know how to do it. Cool. See, yeah, sorry, I didn't have the chat up, so I didn't see that. Yeah, I'll post a spreadsheet in the chat or the Discord. I'm sorry. And then like I hate to harp on it, but I really recommend it. It's just a phenomenal tool as far as like actually getting faster, especially if you don't know what you're comparing to. Hey, no problem, man. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream, post that stuff in the Discord. I'm gonna put a link down to this Discord if anybody that's on the stream wants to join it that has Discord. I saw there was like somebody else in here. Let's see. Expires never. No limit. Generate new link. Copy. All right. So the one thing. Oh, yep. So the one thing that or I'm sorry, the Discord just has two of my buddies I recently invited, trying to see what was up and get some advice on this stuff. So I was about to get back into it, and then just Ultimate Ace 44. Anybody wants to join is welcome. If you guys want to share it, like if you have teammates or something that are learning, feel free to send them in. I'm not going to advertise it. All I'm going to do is put it in the streams that I do and the videos that I do. I'm not going to put it in the forums or anything, so it's not going to, I'm not trying to take it big, but like, I'm willing to help whoever. I've talked about it before, and it's just about time that I got back into it. I enjoy this stuff a lot, so like, you know, it's just fun to do when I'm not rambling, and I mean, I am most of the time, but it's what it is. But appreciate y'all for sticking with me for this long, and you know, hopefully you guys find some success this week. Have a good time. Except Pete, because he doesn't want a NASCAR. But hey, bud, 2022 for a year's subscription. If you want to get in, now's the time. There is a PR code for that if you're interested. But that's all I got. So I will catch y'all later.